Welcome to Cycling Fashion Week, the only global podcast that looks at cycling purely from the entirely superficial lens of fashion, looks, style, and aesthetics. I'm your host, Alex. I am joined by my co hosts, Tony and Warren. This is episode number 2. It's, in fact, the third episode because we have a prologue episode. So, welcome to the program. Guys, how are we doing this week?
We're doing pretty well. How about you?
I'm good. Unfortunately, not a lot of riding in the last week. I had some issues. I split my life between the city and the country. Unfortunately, I'm in the city right now. All my bikes are in the country, so not much riding, which is bad. However, one interesting thing happening on my end, which we'll be talking on the program in the future, is that I have been in the process of building out a bike from a relatively old frame that I was given by a family member, and I'm building it out with modern components, which we'll definitely post it on our Instagram account at Cycling Fashion Week when it's done, so listeners can go and roast me if they think it's awful, or give me compliments if they think it's good. But we'll definitely be talking about that process in the next couple of episodes there.
You're being a little cryptic, Alex, about the bike. Is there a reason for that?
I wanna build some hype on the podcast. I don't wanna give out all the information right away. Kinda give people a reason to tune in the future.
Hmm.
But it's definitely an interesting process, and I would say very difficult to be building out a bicycle in the current market environment right now, where parts are in shortage. Very difficult to get basic things like a cassette or a chain, given all the supply chain issues that we have in the market at the moment. So that's been challenging, but I think it's gonna move ahead, and I think it'll look nice.
See, that's a huge difficulty in the when you're just building a bike purely for the aesthetics of it, for how it looks, is being limited to available product because we all have custom bikes, and we know that when you're building a bike, you really want a range of options to be able to look through and say, okay, these ball cages are perfect. I need them to look this way, this wheel set, this bar tape and everything. And so with this current market, I think it's unfortunately becoming really difficult because sometimes you're looking for something, something as key as like the bar tape that you need to replace, which is a really seems simple, very important to the aesthetic of your bike, making sure you have the correct type of bar tape to go with the overall look of your bike. And sometimes you're just buying what's there. And it's really a negative for people like us who only care about how their bike looks, because we still want to ride. We still love riding. We're not, they're not just display pieces. But when you have to choose based on availability and not what actually looks the best, it's a shot to the heart.
Yes, that's a very important point. I want to remind our listeners that I am building out this bike purely for looks, not for function. Now, obviously, I want to be able to ride on it, but my primary concern there was looks. And I had to get a little creative given the lack of new products available in the market right now. I had to go to the secondhand market. Facebook Marketplace was my friend there. There's been some very helpful people, and it was actually nice to see a bit of solidarity from the community out there, with people saying, "Hey, I wasn't actually going to sell this, but since you're asking, it's kind of sitting in my garage, so maybe I'll sell this part to you to kind of help you out in your build project right now." So that was pretty cool. But yeah, we'll be talking about it on future episodes, and it'll definitely end up on our Instagram account at Cycling Fashion Week when it's ready to be shown to our listeners. Okay, so moving on to our first segment of this week's program, which is where we review new products and new items that just came out on the market. Warren, you have something that you want to talk about.
I do. So our listeners might be aware that, I mean, I assume anyone listening to this is probably a cyclist, because if they're not, I'm not sure why they're listening, except maybe they're into fashion. Who knows? Anyway, Cross is coming. I'm sure you are aware of that. And because of that, Rafa released a new Cross collection of kit. Two, actually. One is in partnership with the Canadian cyclocross racer Magali Rochette. I've probably butchered that name, Alex. I apologize. But we're going to focus a little more on just the cross collection itself, which is this sort of dark and gritty. I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of like a splatter design style with like black and like a dark beige gray kind of thing going on. And um, for me, like as you guys know, our listeners won't know, is like I'm a big cyclocross guy. I race it. I watch many of the races, even the ones where Wout and and Vanderpool don't race. And yeah, so I'm a big cyclocross guy. And this kid is just, it kind of feels like it's early 2000s, like Avril Lavigne punk rock to me. It's like trying to be gritty for some reason, which is one thing I don't like about cyclocross is this like when it comes to like design and that kind of thing a lot of the time is I feel like there's this like attempt to make it gritty somehow. And I guess that's because of all the dirt and mud involved in the races. Not really sure, but I obviously still wear extremely expensive kit when I race cyclocross because if it gets dirty, I can buy new kit, which is always good.
See, I disagree with you, Warren. I love this. I mean, I think part of it is specific to that it's a cyclocross collection. I get your take on the Avril Lavigne thing, but there's something about, I ride a bit across too. I'm not as quite as committed as Warren, but I do think that cyclocross, for some reason, given the kind of culture of it and the nature of how you ride, it gives you the opportunity to wear kit that I don't think would work well on the road. And so I'm always my tolerance is a little bit sort of higher for trying new and interesting things when it comes to something I think I'm going to probably wear while riding cross, or sort of trails or any sort of non road related stuff. So from a pure design standpoint, is it the best design? No, but do I like the kind of idea of it and having something a little bit different, that when you're riding cross? I also have to say I love that they've done a matching sock. I wish they had done a matching bib, because I think that the kind of just sort of uniform look of stuff I'm really into that. Especially, again, my parameters for fashion and cross differ a lot from my parameters for fashion on road. So I think it's kind of good. I think I like the look of it. I like the kind of way. It sort of fits the culture of cross a little bit better. If this was one of those kind of road cycling drops, I'd probably be in agreement with you. But here, as far as cross goes, I'm into it.
So I hear you that you're a little more open to trying different things with cyclocross, but for me, like training, sure, I'm a little more open minded to what I might wear while training for cyclocross. But if I'm racing and I've got these local photographers who are going to take a photo of me, put a huge watermark over it, and then try to sell me a digital copy for $10, like I want to look amazing. I'm not paying that $10 to remove the watermark, but I want to look good under the watermark for my race photos.
See, I'm gonna stay out of this debate altogether. I'm not a cross guy. The cross culture of drinking IPAs and cold brew is not really my thing. I'm more of an espresso and red wine kind of guy. I prefer the doping culture of road cycling to the very casual culture of cyclocross. So when Rafa drops a cross kit that involves white bibs, I'll be interested. But until then, I'm just gonna stay out of this.
That's fair. I should say that the Magali Rochette kit drop I actually like because it's colorful. I think big Magali fan as a racer and just in terms of her Instagram content's pretty good. She's got a cute dog. I'm almost a little torn, but yeah, it's going to be a no for me on the Rafa cross kit. Though I agree with Tony, missed opportunity to not have a matching bib. Though they do have a toque with a pom pom on, which I'm pro pom pom. So maybe I'm changing my mind.
I do want to say though, I did like the Magali Rochette kit. Uh, the colorfulness of the jersey is pretty cool, I find, and The jersey actually reminds me, there's a German brand a few years ago, they're called Beeler, that's the German brand. They had a jersey, I think it was called the Galaxy jersey or something like that, and it was looking sort of like a constellation of stars and planets with, some crazy colors on the jersey, and I do find that they did a good job on the Magali jersey of looking a little bit like that. I mean, it could almost be a road kit at this point, so, I did enjoy that.
One last thing before we move on is I did just check the price of that pom pom hat. It's $75. So that's a no for me.
That makes it more interesting to me. Wasting money. That's pro.
Okay, Tony, there's another release you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so London-based kit maker Romance has recently dropped a collaboration with Dutch artist Para. I believe it's Pieter Para. I'm not, my Dutch is weak. And I guess sort of on the same vein as, me saying that the cross kit is something different. This is something different. I've been following Para for a long time. Actually, he was an artist who has done his own fashion, as well as lots of collaborations with different brands. So it's kind of exciting to see him sort of get together with Romance, who I've also been following for a long time, has done some nice stuff. So they have released a sort of a kind of mini collection with jerseys, bibs, cap, and a gilet. The design is sort of wild. Between mostly the jersey has a real kind of funky design. It's kind of hard to explain. It's like a hand sort of pushing up on a bird or something. I think typically I like a sort of a simpler kit, but I think that when sort of interesting things, interesting collaborations drop, if you've built out a really good wardrobe so far in your cycling kit with some of the basics, some of the sort of simple stuff, it's really important to incorporate these sort of designs and styles, as well as the sort of elitism of it all, because this will probably be a very limited release. It's very expensive. So, if you're to get this, you're sort of saying I'm better than you. Like, this is a wild sort of funky kit that most of you can't pull off because you don't have the cycling panache that I have. And then also, I've just spent a whole bunch of money on something that, just because it's a special drop, has cost, twice as much as it would if there was just a regular drop. This is not for the faint of heart. A kit like this. This isn't your marigold yellow, jersey with a pair of navy bibs. This has got some spice.
Yeah, I think this is really well done, and for our listeners as well, we'll post the kit on our Instagram so you can see what we're talking about at Cycling Fashion Week again. But what I think was really well done with this kit is the lettering, the different typefaces and fonts that were used there. I think personally is really interesting. The way they've written Para, there's it goes from the baseball shirt type of lettering with the underlining, to almost an Italian 1950s. If some of you have ever been to Italy, the tobacco shops in Italy, or the convenience stores, the tabacchi, the kind of lettering that you found in Rome or Milan there in the 1970s or 1960s and 50s, they have that on the kit there, which I think is actually really beautiful. Agree that this is not probably the first kit that you buy. You need some basics in your collection before you can go wear something that's bold like that. But personally, I think it's really well done. Extremely good kit from my perspective. Okay, so moving on to our next segment, which is called the Panache Police, where we discuss different things that we see. So it's basically rants, opinions on trends that we see happening in the world of cycling, or also news that might be coming from the pro cycling world. And actually, I will kick off this segment. You'll recall, our listeners will recall that last episode I threw the Vuelta a España into the canal. I think that of the three Grand Tours, it's the absolute worst Grand Tour from a style, fashion, and aesthetics point of view. Won't go into the reason. Go back into the episode on Apple Podcasts or Spotify if you want to hear my take. But this week, on the Panache Police, what I'll do is I'll give a very high panache rating to the Tour of Britain, which is currently ongoing. Just watched the stage this morning, and in contrast to the Vuelta, I think the Tour of Britain is very, very good from a style and fashion perspective. Couple of things here that I think are really cool in the Tour of Britain. Obviously, in tours, what they do is they invite small teams from the country in which the tour is happening. And in this case, they've invited a couple of small British teams that I personally had never heard of, but that have insanely good kits. I will mention two of those teams that I saw. One of them, and I'll probably butcher the pronunciation here, but it's called Ribble Weldtite, which don't ask me what that company is, but they have a really cool kit. Again, a sort of splatter model jersey. I would almost call it like an actualized or a modern Mapei kit, if you will. It's black. It's got a bunch of fluorescent colors on. And what I thought was amazing in that team is that the riders were wearing white shoes with light purple or lavender socks, which I think was an insanely good combo. So 10 out of 10 to Ribble Weldtite. That cycling team, I think their kit was great. The other one is called Trinity Cycling, which I looked into it. Apparently, it's run by Ian Stannard, who was the former Team Sky rider, but they also have a really nice kit. The lettering on their kit too is really cool. I also think the name Trinity Cycling just sounds really good. Really good kits in the Tour of Britain. Beautiful landscapes if you're watching as well. The countryside out there looks beautiful. And another thing I like, you've got people wearing barber jackets on the side of the road. Old kind of British people dressing like they should in the rainy weather, just encouraging the riders, wearing really nice barber jackets there. So Tour of Britain, I give you a very high panache rating because the styles that I've seen there are amazing.
I did want to just note, lest our listeners think we don't follow pro cycling, as Trinity is also Tom Pidcock's former team before he joined Ineos. And they've always had some pretty nice kits. Maybe it has to do with their, I believe they're still partnered with MAP for their kit. Might vary depending on their road versus cyclocross teams. But I've found personally, Trinity always has nice kits. And the only thing I wanted to say about Ribble Weldtite is I agree. I like the kit, but they're on Ribble bikes, so the whole team should just ride straight into the canal.
Oh, I didn't actually look at the bikes. I only looked at the kit. Yes, if I had considered the bike, this might have invalidated my take, but I'll just ignore it for now.
I mean, I think you were going overall, so we you can't nitpick. We're not talking specifically about Ribble Weldtite. So it's interesting also because it looks like that's that jersey isn't their sort of typical everyday jersey. So we always like when someone a team sort of does something fun. The Trinity Cycling jersey is just phenomenal.
I was a little surprised that the Tour Britain featured such good style, but then I thought about it, and ultimately it's the country that gave us Albion and Rafa. So there is a heritage of good cycling design coming out of the UK. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of really bad design things coming out of the UK outside of cycling, but in terms of cycling, I think the country's contributed some pretty good things to the world overall. So not really a surprise to me that the Tour of Britain would feature such good style. So yes, a very high panache rating for the Tour of Britain. So congratulations there. Tony, there's something else you wanted to talk about on the Panache Police.
Yeah. So as our listeners know, last week I was in Vancouver from Toronto, and so to get back to Toronto, you've got to get yourself on an airplane. And I did just that the other night. And on my way back, I noticed a gentleman who was wearing what I believe to be the Rafa Brevet RCC wind jacket as a sort of regular everyday jacket. He was on the plane with it. He obviously wasn't riding. The rest of his clothes where he was wearing a pair of jeans and some sneakers and stuff. And this is not panache. This is a big no. Cycling stuff that's made for on the bike is to stay on the bike. I didn't make a comment because I didn't want to go viral and have a scene, but I almost made a comment and said, "You're going to have to take that off. It really was inappropriate." Imagine me walking around with arm warmers on while I'm going to going to pick up my groceries or something like that. So it's you got it. It's great that everyone buys those jackets and
Maybe he was bike packing.
bike packing through the air, but you use it well on the bike. Go get yourself an Arc'teryx rain jacket if you need something for off the bike. But on the bike, that's where that stays.
Do you think that guy is wearing the Rafa jacket on the plane to show people on the plane that he's a cyclist, or was he running out of luggage space, or was he just kind of cold and didn't have any other jacket? Like, what do you think's the motivation to do that?
I don't know because I mean that's like I'm actually into the idea of showing you're a cyclist off the bike, but that's where companies have been starting to make the kind of off race stuff that fits that mold where you can kind of have something that is made to not be on the bike but represents you as a cyclist so people can kind of see, okay, this guy's legit. He's not just riding, when he says he's into cycling, it's not a hybrid for, to the local, park or whatever. He's a cyclist, a true cyclist. But in terms of that, I think the guy just didn't really have any style. And I mean, I believe it was a Rafa Club kit. And I would say, though Rafa's done some nice stuff, we've been up and down on them. The people who join the Rafa Club are typically not very cool. It's not a cool thing to do. I'm going to let you guys know that. I'm sure we've got some listeners who are part of it and are not going to be happy with it. But the Rafa Club is stupid. Don't do it. I don't like it.
So you see, you said that for you, the way to show people outside of cycling that you're a cyclist is to wear stuff like the Panormal off race collection. So you're wearing clothes that are for off the bike, but that are by a cycling brand. And I personally hate that. I don't want to be wearing anything cycling related outside of cycling. What I like to do is I like to dress sort of normally, have my own style outside of cycling. But when I'm wearing shorts and people look at my legs, and they go, "Holy shit, you're a cyclist." And that's the way I show it rather than wearing like a PNS, pronounce it real quick, sweatshirt off the bike.
I yeah, I'm with Alex on this one. I am I am off race. I don't want to wear like cargo shorts made by Panormal or whoever. I want to dress well when I'm not biking in the same way that I like to dress well when I am biking. And for that, I need to not be wearing a t-shirt and a cycling cap. What am I? Cycling courier?
I mean, I'm not wearing a cycling cap, right? But I think that the kind of athleisure wear, Gorp core style, I'm into it. Not always, right? All fashion should be appropriate to the situation. But if I'm saying to myself, I'm kind of having a relaxed day where I want to wear some more athletic type wear, I don't want to just wear like a Nike thing and people risk that, I'm into basketball or something like that. I want to wear something like Panormal because then it's kind of like, oh, this is sort of the representation. I mean, we've talked, we're ex skateboarders. We've talked about it. We used to, I don't know what the trend is now, but when we were younger, you used to make sure you had, you always had a Toy Machine t-shirt on or something because you were letting everybody know that you were a skater, even if you didn't have your board with you. And I'm kind of still into that, in the right context of wearing it. If you've got your Panormal off race at someone's wedding, well, that's a problem. That's a problem you should, look in the mirror at. But I think in terms of a sort of what, if I'm going to wear an athleisure wear, I like the idea of the off race kit. I like sort of letting people know, especially now that cycling has sort of boomed and it's wide ranging. When you tell people you're into cycling, to a lot of people, it could mean anything. You want to let people know, like, no, I do stupid miles, stupid kilometers that are painful and hurt, and this is kind of a way, a sort of a way of showing it.
Disagree. Let the big veins on your legs speak.
Do you think, just as an aside, do you guys think cycling influencers, especially those sponsored by like Panormal, would they have to wear off race at their wedding?
Yes, at funerals too. Okay, moving on to what is perhaps our most famous segment on this show called Into the Canal, where we basically take a really bad cycling product or trend or anything that comes from the world of cycling that we absolutely hate, and we toss it in Montreal's beautiful yet very polluted Lachine Canal. Warren, you started this week.
Yes. So I have something. It's not so much a product that I would like to throw into the canal, and that would be GCN, the Global Cycling Network. Now, I do want to clarify. I do not wish to throw GCN Plus into the canal, which is the GCN Plus like race pass has been great as a paid cycling viewing service, especially as a Canadian. We don't get a lot of like broadcasts and that kind of thing, so that's been great. But GCN itself, Global Cycling Network, 100% the all the presenters, they're terrible, ugly GCN kits. They need to be thrown into the canal, and the reason for that is as I said, their kits are ugly, the ones they sell to people, and I feel like it's maybe more of a thing in like Europe where they're to wear them because I think I've only seen a GCN kit in the wild twice in Canada, but the GCN kits are always ugly, no matter who they partner with to make it. Um, they encourage bad style on the bike just by the way they dress and just their bad jokes. There's no joking in cycling. I think we've covered that, and they don't have any takes, you know. And as we talk about a lot on this podcast, we are all about hot takes and hot takes only. GCN never has an opinion. They're always like, it'll be like 105 Durace, which is better? And then the video is always like, well, 105 is still pretty good, but if you can afford it, you should get Durace. And it's just like, I know they don't want to offend their sponsors. And I do want to clarify if someone were to sponsor Cycling Fashion Week, we would not offend you, would absolutely pump up your products. We are completely for sale. Anyway, I do just think that they should go in the canal because they have no takes, bad style. Matt Stevens is gone, and Tom Last is like been kidnapped or something, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Last and Matt Stevens were some of the best. So, when it was sort of tolerable to watch, but I definitely the style thing's bad. I also hate how they're sort of so helpful with their videos. Like, I want a real cyclist should be flipping through Sheldon Brown's website, reading a 4,000 word essay on how to oil your chain. Like, I don't think that it's right that these new cyclists are getting these videos, how to index your gears, and they're, a few minutes long, and they're kind of easy to follow. Like, I want people kind of go back to fucking up their bikes by just trying stuff because they thought maybe it looks like it should work, or yeah, the holy Bible of cycling when I started was sheldonbrown.com. It's basically a GeoCities website with the worst navigation and so much information on anything you want that by the time you're done reading it, you actually don't remember what you were searching for. So I think that GCN is into the canal because I think that it's unpro to have useful advice. I want people to go back to trial and error and messing up their bike, which inevitably will bring them to a shop for the fix.
I can't disagree with any of this. I think GCN is pretty awful, and I think Warren, you said it. I mean, the lukewarm takes are very very boring.
And also, the GCN show used to be like interesting to watch, but now I haven't watched in years now, and I think it's just 30 minutes of like advertising.
And I do want to say we are absolutely for sale as a podcast. That being said, I think we would only choose to partner with brands that we think are actually cool, and we would absolutely hype their products, but in a way that our takes would remain flaming hot, and we would absolutely trash the competitors of
Mm-hmm.
the brands that would sponsor us. That is the nature of the hot takes that we
Yeah.
bring to the table on this podcast. It would not be lukewarm and boring like
Oh yeah.
GCN.
Good brands only. Like Whoop, don't contact us.
Yeah, especially with that Ted King app where he says he wants to perform highly as both a gravel cyclist and a dad, which I definitely can relate to this, but I don't need an app to tell me that I'm sleep deprived and extremely tired. Okay, so I'm going to throw something into the canal as well. So World Championships are coming soon. So both Cross and World Championships are coming. I think it's in a couple of weeks. We're recording this on in mid September. So we'll do in the couple next couple of episodes, we'll do a pretty thorough analysis of national team kits. We'll do a power ranking of countries in terms of how they look with respect to their kits. But there is one country that I do need to talk about on the podcast, and I'm going to throw the entire country into the canal just for how bad their kits are. The reason why I can talk about it now is because I'm pretty confident that that country will not achieve anything at the World Championships in terms of either results or style. And that country, my friends, is Canada. Canada has pretty notoriously some of the worst kits out there in terms of national team kits. I don't know if some of our listeners watch the Olympics. Michael Woods was making a little run at some point for the race. He didn't make it in the end, but he did a little attack, so he was on the camera. And these kits that Team Canada has been wearing for years, this black, white, red with the awful powder blue color that is made by Canadian brand. Actually, it kind of hurts me to say this because it's a Quebec brand as well. Louis Garneau, great entrepreneur, great story behind the company, but my God, the kits are awful. Team Canada could very easily get a local designer to redesign the kits, come up with maybe more kind of neutral colors, like maybe black and red, which, kind of modeled after the Team Canada hockey sweaters as well. I don't know, even get Rafa to do it, get any brand to do it. But this awful powder blue that Cycling Canada has been pushing on us for years is just terrible. And I guess like Cycling Canada too, from a style perspective, if you follow their Instagram account, they're obviously in this for performance and not for style, which is very contrary to our belief system on this podcast here. So unfortunately, as a Canadian, it's unfortunate that I have to do this, but it also shows we're a very unbiased podcast here. So credit to us for being unbiased, but we have to throw our home country into the canal. Maybe if you change the kits at some point, Cycling Canada will pull you out of the canal. But for now, you are absolutely going into the canal. Okay, so Tony, you've got something you want to throw into the canal as well.
Yeah, I mean, this I think I'll probably make quick and simple. I think it's pretty obvious. Similar to kind of last week, I feel it's more helpful to beginner cyclists because you don't see it very often with an experienced cyclist. But that is mounting your phone as your head unit or bike computer. I don't think I really have to elaborate this, but it's totally unacceptable. It looks awful. It's unpro. And don't get me wrong. I don't want your phone to go into the canal because I do think that's important to take content, to take photos, make sure you're looking good. And we're not against safety here. So, make sure you've got your phone available to call for help. But the actual mount, even if it's a quad lock that are supposed to be great and, lock you in there or whatever, take that mount and throw it in the canal. It's done. And then go out and buy yourself a Wahoo or a Garmin and get yourself a proper out front stem mount. And I don't have to elaborate. Just throw anything that puts your bike on your handlebar, your phone on your handlebars into the canal. It's garbage.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about influencers a lot today. A few months ago, I noticed like a lot of the big ones like Ted King, Dustin Klein, they were all pushing this like phone mount. I think it's like a universal phone mount. I don't even remember the brand name because I would never use one. But yeah, I agree with you, Tony. I just 100% in canal, and if influencers are still pushing that, they're gonna have to take a dip in the canal, I think, because like that is one thing we absolutely would not support. So do not contact to sponsor us if you sell phone mounts for bikes.
I think I've seen Chris Froome on Instagram push this for one brand. It might be Quad Lock. I'm not sure which one, but I think this speaks to how washed up Chris Froome is. I do have a question though, perhaps a nuance, and it pains me a little bit to admit this. I feel a little bit embarrassed, but when I train on Zwift, I use the Zwift companion app. And I have to admit that I have bought a phone mount so that I can essentially have my phone in front of me when I'm using the Zwift companion app and I'm looking at my screen to look at my watts or when I'm training. But the having the phone, available to me on my stem there is very useful if I want to change the music on Spotify or do something else. Now, I would never do this outside of the house, but is it okay to do this in the privacy of your own home with no one else watching?
100%. There's training offers a whole sort of different set of rules. I actually also have that. It's functional because the Zwift Companion app is highly needed to control, control the app through your computer or your TV. And so I'm completely giving a pass to anybody who's using it for that.
Thank you.
But
See, I'm going to have to disagree here. Unfortunately, Alex, I think you are going to have to throw yourself into the canal because for me, a quad lock, a phone mount, even when you're training inside, is a no. I know no one's around, no one can see you, but it doesn't matter. It's a state of mind. And for me, when I'm riding the trainer, I got a little stool next to me. I can put my phone there, um, and I can kind of sit up and take it and do it that way. Like, yeah, I'm sorry, Alex. Like, when we record our next episode, if your voice doesn't sound like you're underwater talking from canal, I'm going to be really disappointed.
So that's actually a really interesting topic, which I think we won't address that topic right now. I think it's an entirely different topic for another episode. But what are you wearing when you're training on Zwift at home? Does it matter? And how do you want to look when you do this, even if no one else is watching? Maybe that's a topic we need to tackle in future episodes there.
We can do a whole episode dedicated to trainer style and why Alex is in the canal.
Okay, so moving on to our last segment of the show, where it's called "We Rate Your Bike for Free." It's the segment where listeners send us photos of their bicycle at our email address, cyclingfashionweek@gmail.com, and ask us to rate their bikes and to give some hot takes on how their bike looks. And we very much appreciate that listeners already have sent us a bunch of emails with their bicycles for us to review, to rate for free on the show. We are for sale, but this segment is for free. So this week, we received a very interesting submission from a young lad called Harry from London, England. So Harry, great name for a young bloke from the United Kingdom. And he sent us his gravel bike. And what I'll do is I'll read the email just for context, describing his bike a little bit. And we will also post the pictures to our Instagram account at Cycling Fashion Week so that listeners can go in and look at the photos as we rate it on the program. I have to say, very good photos from Harry. The quality of the pics is incredible. And let me read his email first. So he says, I've attached some pictures of my bike for you guys to rate. To raise some talking points, I decided to send my gravel bike over my other bikes. So pretty controversial choice there by Harry. I've included studio shots. I used to work at a big online cycling retailer who took the shots for me, as well as some in-use shots. The shots without bags are from a Welsh gravel enduro race I recently did called Gritfest. Finished sixth in my category, not to brag. And the photo of it covered in mud and bags is after an epic 250-kilometer off-road challenge, not to brag, where I got the second fastest time, not to brag, of the day called the SSX Mystery Tour. Please don't roast me for wearing basically the same kit for both races. It was my favorite kit this summer and good in hot weather. So Harry lives in London, United Kingdom. His girlfriend is from Spain, not to brag. And he is very much into cycling, and he sent us excellent pictures of his bike that we will post on Instagram. Guys, what did you think of Harry's bike?
First of all, he's doing a lot of bragging for somebody saying not to brag, but
which I love, by the way. Bragging is great.
The not to brag, that this was me adding this to the email. He
okay.
didn't say not to brag, so he was just outright bragging, which is cool. We like bragging, but it was just me adding some commentary there.
Yeah, I'm giving this. I mean, I want to give it a 10. And I know 250K, you need some extra supplies, so I want to maybe knock them off a 0.5 just for the frame bag and the bar bag and the extra water bottle cages on the fork. But overall, so I'm going to say a 9.5 out of 10. I'm going to actually rate this because I think last week we didn't give it an actual number. Because again, we're not against gravel, but we want to make sure you're bringing Rose style to gravel. So it's got a 2x because 1x is gone. I don't like 1x. We're not doing that, right? He's got the tan walls. He's got beautiful zip wheels. He's got a great saddle. He's got a great drop from saddle to handlebars, which is really important because you often see far too much sort of relaxed people relaxing on their sort of stem and their geometry because they're riding far on gravel and stuff. Obviously, the photos we send are professional, so I don't even know if we got to talk about that. Custom paint. Oh yeah, we love a custom paint. You know, if you're gonna buy, if you can't do a custom bike like we all have, at least take your big brand and give yourself a custom paint job so you're standing out in the crowd. But yeah, 9.5 out of 10. There's a lot of things that hit correct here. I just don't like that he's got the kind of gravel look with the frame and the bar bag.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I can't really say too much more than what Tony said. Like the amount of exposed seat post is great. Zip wheels obviously great. Be better with some slicks on because knobby gravel tires aren't cool. Um, and I also wanted to add the fact that he finished sixth, so outside the top five, that rates it even higher. Because if you finish on the podium, then you're clearly like focusing on performance over style. When, as we've established quite well, I think that style should be the priority. So the fact that he didn't crack top five, for me, makes this bike 10 out of 10.
So I actually think he is focused on performance. If you He wrote a longer email where he talked about his kind of philosophy as a cyclist, and he does seem quite performance focused. So, the fact that he was into, he would have liked to be on the podium, but he finished sixth. I don't know if this is really good.
I think this is a greater debate we'll have to have later about whether although style is number one, how important is it to be fast? Because fast is still pro. So if you're stylish and fast, are you better than like, we know that being stylish is better than being fast if you're not stylish. But if you're stylish and fast, are you just on kind of a next level above everybody else? I don't want to get into it now, but I think it's a debate for another time.
I mean, I think it's an amazing bike that we got there from Harry. It's great to see that our listeners are, this stylish. That I loved seeing the tan sidewall personally. If it didn't have tan sidewall tires, it would be canal for me. So the fact that our listeners kind of view tan sidewall as a basic condition of owning a bike, to me, it tells me we have the right listeners on this program. So congratulations to Harry for this. Love the paint job. I don't love that it's a specialized. I have to say, I find the brand a little bit basic overall. But look, I do acknowledge that they make some nice products, and this certainly is it. The zip wheels, amazing. So I'm reluctant to give it a rating, but I think it's a very very nice submission that we got there from Harry over in the United Kingdom, which also shows that we are a global podcast, that our listeners are everywhere around the world. So again, the only global podcast focusing on style. Okay, so that's it for this week's show. Thanks to all of our global listeners for listening. If you like the podcast, tell your friends about it, forward it to people, tell them to listen to it. We're available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and we will be back soon with another episode of Cycling Fashion Week. Take care, everyone.